Hello and welcome back to my Warframe adventure. In today's episode, I do a whole bunch of theory crafting, so buckle in, get cozy, and enjoy. Why hello there, ladies, gentlemen, and friends from beyond the binary, and welcome back to my Warframe adventure. It is lovely to see you all today, and I hope that you are doing well. Now, we need to talk about the events of the last episode, which saw us complete the second dream. I have gone back and made some additional notes, and I've likely still missed a few bits here and there, so bear with me, but I've tried to go back and make the notes on these sections where I was too busy soaking everything in to open up Obsidian and make additional notes. I figured what would make sense is if we go over what I've got, we can then go into theories, trying to piece things together, etc., etc. So yes, bear with me here. So let's begin with the operator. We were aboard the Zariman 10-0, which 10-0, 10-0, genius, before the void jump accident. And then I've got below here dialogue from the operator. I'm confused. I thought I was ... I know. Forgive me. This is who you really are. A Tenno. More than human, but once a child like any other. And then I should probably note that that was the Lotus who said that. The soft lines of a hand. My mother's, I think. We were watching the stars, awaiting the jump to Tau. She was afraid. And again, I'm going to go over all of the notes and then we'll begin theorizing later, but trust me, I am reeling at the potential implications of why we were traveling to Tau. If that is indeed where the Sentients come from, why were we going there? We'll get into that shortly. She was afraid. Memories from your time aboard the Zariman 10-0, before the void jump accident. It was years before the ship was recovered. It was drifting, dead in space, all the crew gone except the Hold on, I've got a better idea about what I can do here. Let's open up a new tab, and we'll call this Second Dream Questions. So the first one, I'll note down, why were we going to Tau aboard the Zariman 10-0? Number 2, what happened during the void jump accident ... question mark. And then next to that I'll put, where did the Zariman 10-0 go after / during the accident? And then secondly, or no, I'll do a whole separate note for this, and that is, why did all of the crew die / disappear except the children? That's a curious one, isn't it? We were dangerous, broken. Every time they tried to fix us, someone always got hurt. I wish I could have saved them. I wish I could have taken their fear away. And I'm assuming in this moment we're talking about the Orokin. You were so brave, but the Orokin were afraid of you. The void had changed you, and you couldn't control it. No one could. They were about to destroy the orphans of 10-0, but Margulis, she loved you. She found a way. And I should probably do this. I think I've got I've got it up here, the Margulis tab. But Margulis, she loved you. She found a way. We couldn't help it. The outbursts. We hurt her, blinded her. But even then, she never abandoned us. In the dream, we found peace, and she sang to us in the cold dark. To which the Lotus responds, the Orokin murdered Margulis, used her work to create transference. Your mind projected into a surrogate, strong enough to withstand your power. It felt like waking up, but it was just a lucid second dream. And again, we'll get onto the Margulis notes in a second, but we can piece together little notes here from the conversation between Margulis and Ballas with the events happening over here in our conversation with the Lotus. So maybe I'll write here, what prompted Margulis to essentially offer her life as forfeit to defend these children, because it was inevitably, or ultimately, not inevitably, ultimately her protection of them which led to her execution. What prompted Margulis to stick her neck out on behalf of the I suppose on behalf of the children aboard the Zariman 10-0, parentheses, the Tenno. Keep scrolling down. The Orokin murdered Margulis, used her work to create transference. We sensed that otherness, but we embraced it. I was free as anything. Free to learn, to experience, to mean something. And so you became Tenno, serving the Orokin, but bound by honor. As the Tenno grew, they founded great schools, the Tenno ways. So now, I think what I'd like to do is, if we drag Margulis over here, we can go over the Margulis notes, and then we can begin comparing and contrasting what we know of Margulis from her conversations with Ballas, and what we know of her from the conversation we had with the Lotus. So, we know that Margulis had a relationship with Ballas, who I'm assuming is one of the 7. What they need, Margulis, is to be destroyed. They're devils from that hell, not human anymore. In reference to the Tenno. Not a question. It's definitely about the Tenno. No Ballas. No more destruction. How can you defend those devils, Margulis? After what they've done to you? What did they do to this Margulis? Well, we know now that they blinded her. They blinded her accidentally. They won't hurt anyone. I just need more time. Tomorrow, you must renounce before the 7. The Orokin murdered Margulis, used her work to create transference. And then we overhear her saying this. This will stop the voices from taking hold. You will have to dream, my angel. Who are the voices in this situation? Who are the voices which can be heard by the Tenno? And then I'll put underneath, it would seem Margulis suspended the Tenno in a dream to prevent them from not being corrupted, maybe, but being swayed. I'll put corrupted, because I think corrupted and the void, there's a connection there, from being corrupted by whoever / whatever was whispering to them. There we go. Shame on you, you Orokin. So perfect on the outside, but you're rotted. 7 hands raised for your apostasy. The judgment is death, said by Ballas. It's about the other rejects we consigned to Lua a few years ago. They're calling it transference. I know we are desperate, Executor, but these aren't Dax soldiers. So, maybe what would benefit me here is a timeline of events. Timeline, second dream. So number 1. And again, I'll chop and change as we go through here. So, a group... we don't really know how many people were aboard the Zariman 10-0. Let's go back here. What did it say? Memories from your time aboard the Zariman 10-0. Soft lines my hands. I think we were watching the stars, awaiting the jump to Tau. She was afraid. Okay, so okay, let's call them colonists. A group of colonists aboard the Zariman 10-0 make their way to the distant Tau. Now, I'm going to put questions indented underneath. at this point in time, were we aware of the sentience? And then I'll put underneath that, because again, this is just theorizing. If so, were we in allegiance with them? If not, just trying to think here. So yeah, right. So if not, or for us to be going to Tau, I wonder if that necessitates that there is already other people there. Like, if other people have already made the jump. If it's Zariman 10-0, does that infer that there was a Zariman 1-0, 2-0, 3-0? Not necessarily, but you got to keep an open mind to these things. Maybe that is the case. At this point in time, were we aware of the sentience? If so, were we in allegiance with them? I would assume if we were aware of them and we knew they lived in Tau, then we would be in allegiance, because I don't know why else you would send colonists somewhere which could be conflated as a potential war zone if we were already at war with them. Second question, were there other colonies that had already made the trip beforehand? And then once again, if so, do they still exist? ... Question mark. So, a group of colonists aboard the Zariman 10-0 make their way to the distant Tau. During their journey, a catastrophic failure occurs within the... we know the name of it because, was it Parvos? Had a void jump operator, Zariman 10-0, second dream, void jump, void engine? I really feel like we've read about this somewhere. Is it under Parvos? Let's have a look. I really feel like I remember this. The Void Drive. Bord's assassins overloaded the Void Drive. And in overloading the Void Drive, is that what led to Parvos and Protea getting stuck in the Void? Because I theorized here that Protea was able to create and enter a pocket dimension within the Void. But what if it was the Void Drive being overloaded, which created some sort of Void wormhole, and it is only now within this pocket dimension that Protea is able to sort of manipulate time, with maybe a newfound power given to her by the Void itself? Let me go back. During their journey, a catastrophic failure occurs within, and I'm guessing it is the Void Drive, and it's during the Void Jump. Occurs during the Void Jump, which sees their journey cut short. And then I'll put underneath this, I believe it was in the conversation with the operator, and here we go. It was years before the ship was recovered. Years later, the ship would be recovered. It was found drifting, dead in space. All of the crew gone, except the children. So, if we go underneath here, was there a problem with the Void Drive? Again, just going to double check. It was definitely called Void Drive, wasn't it? Void Drive, yes. Was there a problem with the Void Drive? And then I'll also put underneath, was this a purposeful act of sabotage akin to what happened to Parvos Granum? when the board's assassins, when the Corpus board assassins sabotaged his void drive, leaving him stranded in the void. One thing I don't like about Obsidian is in this situation, I want to put a full stop, and it puts it on a new line. That is so frustrating. Maybe if I make this a little bit larger? Never mind. That annoys me. I want you to know that really annoys me. So, leaving him stranded in the void. Was there a problem with the void drive? Like what we now know of the Orokin, they were kind of, to not beat around the bush, pieces of shit, weren't they? They weren't very nice. So what if this accident were manufactured as a way to test what would happen if we were to send living beings into the void itself? Was there a problem with the void drive? Was this a purposeful act of sabotage akin to what happened to Parvo's ground? No need to make an additional note there. So, during their journey, a catastrophic failure occurs during the void jump, which sees their journey cut short. I think the next note I want to make will be beneath the next heading. Yeah, let's go back here. So, why did all of the crew disappear? Or do they mean gone as in dead? ... question mark. Because when it says all of the crew gone except the children, were the crew atomized by the powers of the void? Where did they go? What became of them? And why... Okay, so the big question is, why were the children able to not only live on, but be empowered by the void itself? This calls to mind a flaw in the sentience. Could this in some way be related to the problem the sentients face when trying to jump the gap between Tau and the origin system, wherein they lose their ability to conceive? What if these children are no longer able to have children of their own in the future? What if that again, okay, sorry, there's so many different elements coming at me right now. Untimed trace is something I'm thinking of as well. The idea that maybe we don't grow old. Because if it has been hundreds, if not thousands of years since this event, but we are still a child, is that implying that we don't age and this is us now? We're children, but we are hundreds, if not thousands of years old? We know that we possess a trace of untime. Could untime itself be a phenomena localized within the void that can only be I'm struggling to find the words here. Consumed or used by children for some reason? Maybe it's because they're not fully developed yet. that the untimed trace is able to sort of like latch on to the kids, because it's able to fill in blanks. I don't know. I'm really trying to just think outside the box here, right? Why did all of the crew disappear? Why were the children able to not only live on, but be empowered by the void itself? Could this in some way be related to the problem the Sentients face when trying to jump between the gap between Tau and the origin system? Right. So the next part here is the Orokin were tried to fix. I'm going to put fix in parentheses. Tried to fix the Tenno. But someone would always get hurt. They feared what the Tenno were capable of. You were so brave, but the Orokin were afraid of you. The void had changed you, and you couldn't control it. No one could. They were about to destroy the orphans of 10-0, but Margulis, she loved you. She found a way. So the next note. Or they feared what the Tenno would become, were capable of. They sought to destroy them. And I think this is where we want to go back to the Margulis and Ballas conversation. What they need, Margulis, is to be destroyed. They're devils from that hell, not human anymore. Was this spearheaded by Ballas? Presumably a member of the Seven? Question mark. Margulis fought to save them. Margulis fought to save the Tenno. And then if we go back to the operator tab, Margulis loved you. She found a way. She loved them. We couldn't help it, the outbursts. We hurt her, blinded her, but even then she never abandoned us. Sorry, I might have just heard my phone make a sound. Sorry. For some reason, the alert sounds like ridiculously loud. No, thank you. Put you over there. It was like, Margulis fought to save the Tenno. She loved them. And then I'll put underneath this, unfortunately, despite her aid, they inadvertently hurt her, blinded her. But even then, she never abandoned them. In their dream, they found peace, and Margulis would sing to them in the cold dark. Then, this is where it sort of begins to spin in with what we know of Margulis with the conversation between her and Ballas. Because we can read in here. How can you defend those devils, Margulis, after what they'd done to you? They blinded her accidentally. They won't hurt anyone. I just need more time. So now I'll put Ballas and the Seven continued to oppose the Tenno, especially in lieu of them hurting her. But she refused to give up on them. It was then decreed that Margulis would be executed after all members of the Seven agreed that her judgment should be death. There you go. 7 hands raised. For your apostasy, the judgment is death. But then, if I'm following the timeline correctly, after Margulis had been killed, after Margulis's death, the Orokin, parentheses, the Seven, continued to practice and research transference. And we know from a conversation she had over here, the Orokin murdered Margulis, used her work to create transference. Your mind projected into a surrogate, strong enough to withstand your power. It felt like waking up, but it was just a lucid second dream. But this is where this line comes in. They're calling it transference. I know we are desperate, Executor, but these aren't Dax soldiers. So it would seem in the wake of Margulis's execution, the Tenno were imprisoned within Lua, or the moon. Somehow that went to the sun. Kermeros. The moon. There we go. Were imprisoned within the moon for safekeeping. Later on, it was decided that they would be used as weapons of war by the Seven. Presumably, after they had, not perfected, but after they had created the Warframes. So here's what I'm curious about. I wonder what the timeline is like between Margulis's execution, the imprisonment of the Tenno within the moon, and then the beginning of the Old War. So I'll put underneath here, in the intervening years, the Old War would begin, seeing the Orokin face off against the Sentients. It was decided that they would be used as weapons of war by the Seven, presumably after they had created the Warframes. There was, seemingly, some pushback, deeming the orphans, parentheses, Tenno, to be inferior to the Dax. So here's where things get really crazy. I feel as if Margulis and the Lotus are one and the same in so many different ways. Because when we hear Margulis speak to Ballas, it sounds like the Lotus, right? So maybe if we come down here, and I don't really know where to go with this. I don't know what to make of this at all. So Margulis served the Tenno, looked after them, loved them, much like the Lotus. But at some point in time, she was executed. What then became of her body, I wonder? I don't know what the Orokin do to their dead. Do they bury them? Do they shoot them out of an airlock? I don't know. I've got no idea what their funeral rites might be. But this body of Margulis, to my mind, existed somewhere, and my theory is that Natah, the Sentient, was able to herself commit transference into the body of Margulis. That's my guess. That's my theory. Because they feel one and the same. And it would explain why, maybe we'll I don't know where to put this. The Lotus, I guess? The Lotus. Let me just go here. She's up here, isn't she? The Lotus. She awoke the Tenno. Shortly afterwards, as we were being captured, she states, I cannot lose another Tenno. What is happening to the Tenno around the universe? According to Teshin, the Lotus made us forget about the old war, describing it as a mercy. Why did she do this? More importantly, dare I say, how did she do this? Are there other Lotuses out there? In the conversation with Teshin, she mentions being our Lotus as if it were a role and duty as opposed to her name. In the Codex for the Glass Warrior, Tenno are implied to be her children. In what way is that possible? Where's the Natah note as well? Did I leave that down here? Natah. This is the quest, though, as opposed to just talking about Natah. Is Natah the Lotus the child of the Sentient? Yes. Why did Natah not finish the sequence? The Sentients crossed the gap in the process, losing their ability to create progeny. One such Sentient was the one which now lies beneath the waves of Uranus in a closed tomb and cage. And I'm going to put in parentheses, Hunhao. The Sentient later reveals that they are the father of the Lotus, whose real name is Natah. The Lotus had similarly crossed the gap, losing her own ability to sire children. She was given a directive by her father to fulfill a sequence, one which she never completed. Instead, in the wake of the Old War's conclusion, she betrayed her father's wishes and hid the Tenno away in the second dream. So it was after the conclusion of the Old War. She betrayed her father's wishes and hid the Tenno away in the second dream. Why? Hushed and empty as the womb of the sky, could this actually be referring to the barren nature of the Sentients who crossed the gap? Why would the Lotus protect the Tenno and in the process become a mother to them? I feel like it's not undeniable. I'm not going to get that carried away, but it feels very, very, very likely that there is... I'll make a new thing down here. How are the Lotus and Margulis connected? Does the Lotus wear Margulis's body? The only thing which makes me think that's maybe not the case is presumably Margulis would have been an Orokin, right? But the Lotus doesn't have the telltale traits, such as the, like, really light blue skin that we've seen the Entrati have. The eyes we cannot see, and I wonder if the reason for that is because if this is Margulis, then presumably she would be blinded, as we find out here. Does the Lotus wear Margulis's body? Is the reason she... Not the reason, but... Does her visor hide the fact that it is Margulis's body? Because of the fact that the Tenno blinded her during... just blinded her in the past. And I wonder if this mask allows her to see. But that doesn't take away from the fact that how would Natah exist within her body? It calls to mind transference. But how would Natah know about transference? Unless Margulis wasn't killed. And maybe she was slipped out the back door. Right? Maybe she fled. And that's a detail that we're missing here. Maybe she was able to escape. But then still, like, there's this big murky area in the middle which I just cannot tackle. And that is, again, how did Natah... How are the Lotus... I'll put Natah as well. Natah and Margulis connected. Does the Lotus wear Margulis's body? Or is the Lotus more so a byproduct of Natah and Margulis? Is that why a new name has been adopted? Does her visor hide the fact that it is Margulis's body because of the fact that the Tenno blinded her in the past? How, if this is the case, would Natah have co-opted slash joined slash merged with Margulis. It seems as if there was some level of transference which took place. And if we go back to here, your mind projected into a surrogate strong enough to withstand your power. It felt like waking up, but it was just a lucid second dream. It makes me wonder if Margulis left some sort of directive as to how to complete transference. I just... What happened to Margulis in the wake of the execution? Was she, in fact, not killed, and instead, escaped by herself, freed by another, escaped by herself. Well, I can't think of another option. Freed by another. I was going to say, could it be Ballas which freed her? But to me, it doesn't seem like they were necessarily the best of friends. Where is Margulis? Margulis. What they need, Margulis, is to be destroyed. No Ballas, no more destruction. How can you defend them? They blinded you. Tomorrow you must renounce with the Seven. Orokin murdered her, used her work to create transference. This will stop the voices from taking hold. You will have to dream, my angel. I don't know. Because, again, the only other thing I can think of is, if she were killed, what did they then do to her body? Maybe they used her body to experiment upon? But why would they do that? That feels unnecessarily cruel. We are talking about the people who are using superpowered child soldiers. So maybe that fits the bill, actually. But, like, her body must have existed. Because I feel really strongly that is Margulis's body. Because we know the Sentients aren't human. So for a Sentient to look like a human must necessitate transference of the Sentient's mind. Oh, I've got some blueprints completed. Nice. Into Margulis. But again, I do not know where else to go with that for the time being. I've got no idea. I feel like I'm at a bit of a dead end. But there's 100% some connection there. There has to be, in some way, shape, or form. Zariman 10-0. Any other questions in here that we can sort of like piece out? Parvos, the Void Drive. Why were the children able to not only live on, but be empowered by the Void itself? Okay, well, another question then, I suppose. If we come down here, what began the Old War? Because if we go back to the second dream quest? No, I need the Arcane Codices. There we go. All is silent and calm, hushed and empty as the womb of the sky. Something I've overlooked, and just reading Womb of the Sky. How did the Lotus manage to pluck the moon from the sky and put it in the void? That is an incredible power. A celestial object on the scale of the moon? And being able to just, like, zap it out of existence into another realm of being entirely? Does she really have that power? Or is she working with others to make that happen? Or was it a group effort by the Tenno. We have seen how powerful the Tenno are. What if the Lotus was able to command them to do it themselves? Maybe. Because I don't think she herself could do it. So here we shall search and find the eyes of day drinking the night. All is silent and calm, hushed and empty as the womb of the sky. What began the Old War? From what we know of the stolen dreams outlined in the Arcane Codices note, and I'll quote it exactly, the Sentients, I'm assuming, I don't know 100%, but it certainly seems that way, state the following. Here we shall search and find the eyes of day drinking the night. And then I've messed it up. Drinking the night. My read on this is that the eyes of day are the Orokin, seeing as their eyes shine bright like daylight. And the drinking the night refers to their use of the void, potentially focusing on the Tenno who were corrupted by, or corrupted / empowered by the void. That seems to be the directive. Is that there is a problem there with them using the void. Them becoming devils. I mean, that's the word Ballas used, right? And I mean, what was the thing we know about Ballas from... where did I put him? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I think Ballas said that. No, that can't be right. Well, someone said it. Perhaps a colleague, friend, associate. We later discovered during these whispers during the second dream quest that this Ballas sought the destruction of what I can only presume to be the Tenno. Golems, the Warframe... Oh, sorry, Windows update. Thanks, Windows. Golems, the Warframe, wielded by devil minds. See, I didn't go back and get the full note for that. But that seems to be the way they wanted to use the Tenno. But how did they make them subservient, I guess is my question. How do you go from wanting the total eradication of a people to making them your weaponized slaves? Like, how did that happen? How did that occur? Maybe through I don't know, tampering with Margulis' research into transference, they were able to put in some sort of failed safe? It said they were bound by honor somewhere. I really thought it was in here. So brave. So, there you go. So he became Tenno, serving the Orokin, but bound by honor. As the Tenno grew, they founded great schools, the Tenno ways. Makes you wonder how many kids were aboard this ship. The Zariman 10-0, right? We know the Tenno ways are the Vizarin, Zenarix, Naramon, Unairu, and Madurai, which I have seen these names before in the game when I'm doing my daily bounties on Deimos. I was getting lenses like Zenuric lens, Naramon lens, and in the it didn't mean anything to me. I don't feel spoiled at all, not even an iota. But why are we finding those lenses on Deimos, right? How many Tenno are there? How big was this ship, the Zariman 10-0? Like, if it were it's clearly not the size of our ship, right? Like, for there to be schools, for there to be all of these different Warframe, it would necessitate that there are presumably thousands of children who are aboard this ship. Okay, one other thing that we can look at to maybe dig a bit deeper into the beginnings of the Old War is Hunhao. He's sentient, looking to destroy the Tenno by exploiting long-forgotten secrets. Every part of him is connected to a singular mind. The blade he gifted to the Stalker is a part of him, seemingly as if it's able to communicate with us. Now, where did I put other notes about Hunhao? Maybe in here. Let's have a look. Who destroyed the Orokin, your way of life? Who do you hunt, Shadow? To cleanse the despair in their blood. Tenno. Sever their heads, yet they rise again. Hidden the Tenno essence, their truth from you. I know where she hides in the Tenno heart, a womb in the sky forbidden to my kind, but where you will take me. I am Hunhao, sentient destroyer of worlds. By your hand, expose their heart. By my edge, cleave it beating from its nest. We touched the relic of the Old War and inadvertently gave Hunhao the location of the reservoir Womb in the Sky's second dream. Alad V mentions that the last time we got close with the Sentients, we wiped out an entire civilization, Orokin. So this is where I'm not lost necessarily. So if we come down here and we add on a little bit more to the timeline, at some point during the Old War, we betrayed the Orokin and are still called betrayers to this day, such as when Alad V called us betrayers during the Second Dream quest. And we are largely seen as betrayers by the people. It would seem that we allied with, for a time, allied with the Sentients. Why would we do that? Why would we do that? Question mark. Especially when Hunhao is hell-bent on our eradication. And why would the Old War have begun? Because it can't be for this reason then. It can't be because they sought the annihilation of the Tenno. Because why would they ally with us to destroy the Orokin in that case? It would seem that we allied with the Sentients. Why would we do that? Not only why, but in the aftermath of the Old War, Hunhao sought our obliteration, as discovered in his conversations with the Lotus, wherein he mentions her failing to complete the sequence. It would seem that it was at this time she decided to plunge the moon into the void to protect them from Hunhao and presumably the other Sentients. Why would the Old War have begun? I did wonder if there was a peacetime between them at some point, but I think that was from a misinterpretation. I think it was when I assumed Margulis was the Lotus going by a different name. Thereby, Margulis was a sentient communicating with the Orokin. But now my line of thinking, and I feel much more strongly about this, is that Margulis was in fact an Orokin who advised, served, operated alongside the Seven. At some point during the Old War, we betrayed the Orokin. We used as weapons by the Seven. In the intervening years, the Old War would begin, seeing the Orokin face off. Is there anything we know about the Old War? I mean, maybe there are bits of dialogue in the game we can discover about the Old War, and maybe better understand why it began in the first place. Why, like, who shot first? Did the Sentients come here? I'm trying to think about what might have caused it to have started. I mean, Hunhao describes himself as the sentient destroyer of worlds. That's kind of intense. And then we know that the Orokin are, yeah, again, by no means saints. In fact, they were pretty preposterous, horrible people. So maybe it was just destined that eventually these two races would butt heads, right? We touched a relic of the old war and inadvertently gave Hunhao the location of the reservoir womb in the sky. Yeah, it's... I'm sure, and I know maybe people are like, just play the game, you'll get answers, but I just want, you know, I feel like it's important to sort of share my thoughts on this, because maybe you guys will derive some enjoyment from it. It would seem the wake of Margulis' execution, the Tenno are imprisoned. It all goes back to the beginning, right? Like, why were we going to Tau? Why were the Zariman 10-0 occupants making their way to Tau? And for us to then not make the journey and then several years later be recovered, and then later the old war to begin, I cannot fathom what would have begun that at the moment. Something else we can talk about is the Stalker. Who destroyed the Orokin, your way of life? Who do you hunt, Shadow, to cleanse the despair in their blood? Tenno, sever the heads, yet they rise again. It was mentioned somewhere, but I don't think I ever got a note of it, but something about how the reservoir had corrupted the Stalker. And the Stalker appears, I think I got a picture of him under the Hunhao note. The Stalker appears to be, looking at the head especially, a Warframe, right? That sort of chrysalid, alien aesthetic, which you see especially with frames like Excalibur, Loki. I mean, all of them have a similar, like, alien aesthetic to them. But that screams Warframe to me. So maybe that's why. Is it... Where would I have written it? If I go down to Stalker. You hesitate, Shadow, but remember your despair. This is your only chance to make it end. Your hatred is too weak. Shadow, mine is strong. My fragments will finish this. No self, no sense, no death. Just a metal puppet dangling on Tenno strings. Only the Tenno's death will end your despair. All your dread-long life, you've waited for this moment. You're asking yourself, was I one of these wretched things? You know the answer. You still hate them. You still hate yourself. So, I wonder then if... Was the Stalker once a Warframe controlled by a Tenno, but something went wrong? I don't know what could have gone wrong, to be honest. But in order to bring about salvation, he would need to kill all of the Tenno. Maybe it's a Tenno who gave in to the voice in their head? Is my read at the minute, maybe? Because the Stalker... I mean, maybe not. I'm just trying to think of the entrance animation when the Stalker appears during an ambush, floats through the ground behind you in, like, smoke. Is there any relevance there? I'm trying to think about any comparisons between the Stalker and the Void, and if we can draw any I don't know, points between them. Was the Stalker once a Warframe controlled by a Tenno, but something went wrong? Remember your despair. This is your only chance to make it end. And then is it during the quest? No. Says something about hunting us down. No, I can't find it. Damn. I could have sworn there was something about, again, him being corrupted by the reservoir in some shape or form. So because it's clearly a Warframe that is quote unquote sentient, I wonder if the Stalker was like a progenitor to transference, like maybe one of the first. Was the Stalker among one of the first attempts at transference? And maybe it went slightly wrong, and the Tenno consciousness got trapped inside of the Warframe. I wish I could find the note I'm trying to think of. Oh, no, wrong one. Stalker. Your hatred is too weak, mine is strong. Remember your despair. You're asking yourself, was I once one of these wretched things? You know the answer. You still hate them. You still hate yourself. Does the Stalker see itself as an abomination? An affront to the natural order of things? And thus despises the Tenno for their devilish nature of being one with the void. Tenno ways. The 7 pods, we've not spoken about this. But there are 7 pods which form this Lotus-esque shape amidst the reservoir. What is the significance of that? Because obviously 7 pods makes me think the 7, but that can't be the case. Because inside of these pods were Tenno, not the 7. Who I assume, again, as some sort of high-ranking, if not leadership, among the Orokin, right? I'll make a note of that in here as well. Are the 7 high-ranking, if not leaders, of the Orokin? Why were there 7 pods in the reservoir? Did I not make a note on the reservoir? I'll do that now. In the reservoir. What is the significance of this? Could the original pre-Old War intention have been to use the powers of these Tenno, and presumably, I love the word presumably, and presumably their longevity due to the untimed trace within them. Use powers these Tenno, and presumably longevity due to the untimed trace within them as a contingency plan to provide themselves with that power. Like, what if before transference was seen as a weapon of war, could instead have been used as a way for these 7 to have transferred their consciousness into the Tenno and become immortal? Because again, if this happened thousands, if not hundreds, no, hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, and to quickly, you know, let's go into the game for a moment. If you go and have a look, we are still a child, right? Which would surely state, or, you know, imply very heavily that the void stops you from aging? But presumably that's not your consciousness, it's your body. Which would, like, I don't know. It would tell me that that's something highly desirable. I mean, isn't that like the human condition to a degree? What is life? What does it mean to live? What does it mean to die? And isn't, you know, something that Not necessarily that everyone would seek, but, you know, immortality, isn't that just, like, something everyone would love to at least experience? Not everyone would, I understand that. As a contingency plan to provide themselves with that power. Untimed trace as a contingency plan. If that were the case, though, I wonder why they would have then used them as weapons of war. I guess because they weren't able to do it yet. I don't know. But I'm quite happy with that theory, I'll be honest. I'm quite happy with that idea. Touch the Relic of the Old War. What else do I have to go over? Hunhao, Margulis. Well, Hunhao's still out there. So presumably we'll be running into him again very soon. As is the Stalker, right? I believe the Stalker is still stalking. Which is nice. Thanks for that, Stalker. Margulis, Natah, Second Dream, Stalker, the Moon. I mean, isn't that just an amazing visual? Absolutely incredible. So, I'm not 100% on this, but it would seem that Lua, the Moon, maybe at some point in time, the Moon / Lua seems to have, at some point in time, been used as not a mining colony, but a lot of the moon rock is gone. It's long gone. Is that a byproduct of it being in the void, or has it always been that way? I would guess it's always been that way, because if you look at the architecture within the moon, a lot of the architecture is built into these gulfs and canyons, which presumably came from them harvesting the moon. At some point in time, being harvested by the Orokin, then later repurposed as some sort of prison. Within the moon lies the reservoir, the secret to our Tenno power. The Stalker was corrupted by it. There, okay, so there's the line about the Stalker being corrupted by the reservoir. Not the moon rock itself missing. Is that due to the Orokin or due to the void? Well, I think we've got a lot to chew on there. A lot to chew on. And I cannot wait to see what comes next. I feel like I've got not a great understanding, but a pretty good, okay-ish understanding of the events which are currently happening around me. I've got a lot of questions. A lot of questions, which maybe we'll have answers to in the not-too-distant future. Let me just shut these down, and then we can see this in all of its glory. We'll shrink that over here. There you go. I'll scroll down in case people want to read it again. There are all of the notes I've made, and all of the connections, and all of the theories. Sorry, the scroll bar got a bit stuck there. Okay. Right. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, which has just basically been WTF BBQ just happened. If we come over here, I can show you that the next quest will be the War Within, which those words were stated by the Lotus during the last quest. And if I come over here, I can show you that I am actively working on the Pluto Junction. So during the next episode, the plan is to go over here and deal with the Hyena Pack. And then once we've done that, we can unlock Pluto, and then that will bring about the War Within. Very excited for that. But yeah, I think for now, unless, I guess I can show you what's happening over here. In progress. What do we got? Got some brand new weapons. Furious, Lacera, Latron. I got the Necros Prime bits. Been working on that. Because I own Necros, right? So I thought, well, building Necros Prime seems like the next move, right? So got all of that. I should now be able to make the Furis, the dual-wielding Furis. Yep, perfect. We'll put both of those in. I don't mind using the mastered one. That's fine. Wait, does that have a... It has a catalyst in it? Holy shit. Did I get that from a quest? Okay, I'm going to make another Furious so I don't waste that one. Because I kind of want to keep that if it's got that on there. Anyway, I think that's all I have to show. I don't think anything else comes to mind. Yeah. Anyway, hope you've all enjoyed this lore debrief. And I will see you in the next episode for, hopefully, The War Within. So, fare thee well, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.